Thinking about selling your products to the Indian government? It's a massive market, but there is a crucial first step you've got to take. So today, we're breaking down the official GeM vendor validation policy. Think of it as your roadmap to getting started.
So, you're looking to get a piece of that pie, right? Sell your products or services to the government of India? It's a huge opportunity, for sure. But before you even think about listing your first item, there's one really important document you need to get familiar with. And this is it, the vendor validation policy. Now, I know it looks a little intimidating, maybe a bit like a hurdle, but don't think of it that way. Instead, see this as the official map for your journey to becoming a trusted, verified supplier on the GeM portal. Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with the why this validation thing even matters. Then we'll unpack the policy's 3 core pillars and the 2-stage assessment process. After that, we'll talk about a potential shortcut, how you might qualify for an exemption, and we'll wrap up with the latest policy updates you absolutely need to know about.
First things first, why does GeM validation matter so much? Well, this isn't just some bureaucratic box-ticking exercise. It's really about building the very foundation of a reliable and trusted marketplace for government buyers. And look, this isn't just something GeM made up for fun. This requirement is actually grounded in official government regulations. Rule 149 of the General Financial Rules specifically says GeM has to certify the credentials of its suppliers. So you see, this whole process is about making the platform secure and credible for everyone. So what exactly are they verifying? Well, it's the fundamentals of your business, really. They're checking your identity through Aadhaar and PAN, your company registration, your GSTN or goods and services tax number status, your financial turnover, and whether you're registered as an MSME or a recognized startup. It's a full checkup to make sure every vendor on the platform is legit. Okay, so how does GeM actually structure all of this verification? It all comes down to a really clear framework, the 3 validation pillars. And if you understand these, you'll pretty much understand the whole process.
What's great is how simple this makes it. Think of it like this. Pillar 1, your vendor profile, is basically who you are. Pillar 2, your functional profile, is all about what you can do. And Pillar 3, vendor performance, is how well you've been doing it. That last one is super important for your long-term success, because a good rating builds a ton of trust. Simple, right? Profile, function, and performance.
All right, so we know what they're checking and why. But how do they actually do it? Well, that brings us to the really practical part, the 2-stage assessment. This is your direct path to getting that official validation. The whole assessment is broken down into 2 very different stages. Stage 1 is a broad physical check of your profile. They'll look at your documents, your experience, and they might even check out your office. Stage 2, though, that goes a lot deeper, and it's all about your functional side, specifically your manufacturing process and quality control. This slide makes it crystal clear. See how Stage 1 is for everyone? It's mandatory for all vendors. Doesn't matter if you're an original equipment manufacturer, an OEM, or a reseller. But Stage 2? That's exclusively for the OEMs, the folks who are actually making the product. So once you get through the assessment and pass, you're validated for 3 whole years. That's a huge milestone. But just keep in mind you'll need to apply for a fresh assessment before that time is up to stay validated. Of course, this assessment isn't free. There is a fee. This table gives you a quick look at the costs. As you can see, they're different depending on whether you're an OEM or a reseller, and they're tiered based on your turnover. You should really think of it as an investment in getting your business certified for government contracts. But wait, what if you could skip that whole assessment process? That brings us to our next section, qualifying for an exemption. This is a potential shortcut on your journey that you'll definitely want to know about. So ask yourself this right now. Could my business skip the assessment entirely? The next couple of slides are really important because if you find out you're exempt, you could save yourself a lot of time and, some money. Okay, so the first big group of exemptions is for government and associated bodies. We're talking about central or state public sector undertakings and boards like KBIC or TriFed. The same goes for some registered societies or trusts, but listen up, there's a critical recent change here. This exemption only applies if you're a reseller. The second key group that can get an exemption is licensed manufacturers. So if you're an OEM and you already have a valid BIS license, a CMVR certificate, or other specific licenses for things like making drugs or medical devices, you can probably qualify. Basically, GeM is saying if these other rigorous agencies have already certified you, that's good enough for them.
So if you're sitting there thinking, hey, that sounds like me, here's your call to action. You're going to need to log into your GeM portal and follow this exact path. Click on My Account, then go to Vendor Assessment, and finally, click on Assessment Exemption Documents. That's where you'll find everything you need to apply.
Now let's switch gears for a second. This part is vital for everyone, but especially for those of you who might already be on the GeM platform. Let's talk about what's new in Policy Version 3.4, because these changes are set to take effect from October 3rd, 2025. All right, the single biggest change is one we just touched on. Look at the old rule on the left. The exemption for registered societies and trusts used to cover OEMs. But now, look at the new rule on the right. That OEM path is gone. The exemption now applies only to resellers in these organizations. This is a really major clarification. There are a few other important updates in v3.4 as well. The policy now officially spells out those exemptions for OEMs with BIS and CMVR certificates. There's also a new, simplified assessment process for really large vendors. We're talking turnover greater than 500 crore rupees. And a critical new note for everybody. You have to respond to questions from the assessment agency quickly, or you risk your application getting rejected. So stay on top of your emails. So let's wrap this all up with your journey checklist. 1. Understand that validation is mandatory. It's step 1. 2. Remember those 3 pillars: profile, functional, and performance. 3. Your biggest homework is to figure out if you need the full assessment or if you might get an exemption. And finally, 4. If you're already a vendor, please review those v3.4 changes carefully. And that brings us to the end. We've laid out the policy, the process, and the key decisions you'll need to make. So now that you have the map in your hands, the real question is, are you ready to start your journey on GeM?